Thank you for visiting my channel. This is going to be another movie review, and this analysis is going to be on the remake, a recent remake of the classic Frankenstein. Now, for this one, we have Frankenstein that's not really obsessed, but he looks into the mirror and sees what he is not expecting, obviously, right? So it's not really about him, it's about the mirror. Now, this 2025 remake doesn't just resurrect Mary Shelley's classic book, it resurrects the question of what happens when human ambition outruns divine order. It asks, what happens when you create something in your image but without love? Now, this movie isn't horror, it's revelation, it's wrapped in lightning. Now, it's what happens when a man tries to manufacture life, but forgets that spirit can't be assembled. And if you've ever felt rejected by the one who made you, such as a parent, a system, a community, or even God, this story will definitely hit a nerve. Now, Victor Frankenstein doesn't just build a body, he builds a womb. He becomes the architect of life that's disconnected from its source. And spiritually, that's what humanity's been doing for centuries. We chase progress like it's salvation. We call it innovation, but often it's imitation of divine power without divine wisdom. See, Victor's sin isn't that he created life, it's that he walked away from what he created. He birthed a being but withheld his blessing. Sound familiar? How many people do you know who were created but never affirmed, born but never seen? That's where monsters are made, in the absence of acknowledgement. The creature in this version isn't evil, he's echoing. He's what happens when the unloved tries to define himself. Every scene drips with the ache of rejection. The way he looks at people, wanting to belong, but they see only what terrifies them. That's how society treats anyone who doesn't fit its mold. And on a spiritual level, that's how the enemy twists pain. He convinces you you're unworthy because of how others responded to you. But Del Toro flips the lens. He gives the creature soul. You start realizing the monster isn't the creation, it's the creator's absence. Now, Victor is brilliant, but he's hollow. And now here comes his fall. Because he's like today's world, full of data, lacking discernment. He worships control, but he can't handle consequence. When the creation rises, Victor doesn't see a miracle, he sees a mistake. That's pride in its most spiritual form, wanting to play God, but not wanting to love like God. And the deeper truth, when we create or try to create outcomes outside of divine timing, we end up parenting chaos. Victor becomes haunted, not by what he built, but by what he refused to heal. That's how trauma passes through generations, not by blood, but by neglect. Somewhere between rage and loneliness, the creature becomes aware, not of what he is, but of who he was meant to be. And that's when the film shifts from a gothic tragedy to spiritual awakening. He begins to see himself not as a failed experiment, but as a soul in search of meaning. And that's the moment every human being faces when you realize your maker may have failed you, but creation itself still carries divine fingerprints. The creature's longing isn't just for revenge, it's for recognition. He wants to know if he still has a soul. And that's what makes this story timeless. Every abandoned soul asks the same question. We live in a Frankenstein world right now. Artificial life, manufactured beauty, digital gods, but no spirit, no empathy, no accountability. This movie holds up a mirror and says, you can build all the systems, the algorithms, the machines, but if you don't love what you create, it'll rise against you. The monster isn't in the lab, it's in the absence of compassion, it's in the pursuit of knowledge without conscience. Now, by the final act, Victor faces what he birthed. And in that confrontation, there's something holy, not because it's perfect, but because the truth finally meets its reflection. The creature forgives in a way that Victor never could, and that's the spiritual paradox. Sometimes the rejected one carries more grace than the one who rejected them. Forgiveness becomes the only resurrection that matters. And when the creature walks away at the end, scarred but conscious, you realize he may not have been born holy, but he became whole. So, what does it mean? Spiritually, the film isn't about science or monsters. It's about what happens when people try to play God with others' lives. When leaders create followers but don't nurture them. When parents birth children but don't guide them. When systems create citizens but don't protect them. Frankenstein of 2025 tells the truth we keep trying to avoid. We are all someone's creation and someone's abandonment. And until we heal that, we'll keep creating what we're afraid to love. When the lightning hits and the creature opens his eyes, that's not horror, that's awakening. It's the spark of consciousness. The question isn't who made me. It's now that I'm alive, what will I become? And maybe that's the hidden gospel of Frankenstein in the year 2025. That even a creation born from brokenness can still find purpose beyond its pain. That being unloved doesn't mean you're unworthy. That sometimes the monster is just the proof that spirit can be killed, even when man tries. You know what hits hardest? The moment the creature looks at the world and realizes no one's coming back for him, right? That's the ache of spiritual abandonment, not just from people, but from purpose. And how many of us live there, alive but detached from what made us, breathing but disconnected from meaning? This is where Frankenstein stops being a movie and starts being a mirror. Because most of us don't need stitches or bolts to relate to that loneliness. We felt what it's like to be pieced together by survival and held together by hope. When love walks away, the soul starts building its own theology. It asks, if the one who made me rejected me, am I still divine? And that's the creature's true battle, not against humanity, but against the belief that he was a mistake. Victor's lab wasn't just science, it was ritual, electricity, timing, sacrifice, and intention. He tapped into a divine algorithm without reverence. That's what happens when you access power before you've learned honor. And that's not just the story, that's the world. Every invention, every discovery, every artificial life form. We're touching things we barely understand. Spiritually speaking, Frankenstein isn't warning us about monsters. It's warning us about becoming gods without guidance. The real question isn't, can we create? It's, can we love what we create enough to be responsible for it? You ever wonder why Victor couldn't love his creation? Because he never healed his own wounds. Del Toro's version hints that Victor's obsession began with loss, a mother he couldn't save, a world he couldn't control. He didn't build life to honor God. He built it to outsmart death. And that's trauma disguised as genius. We do the same thing. We build careers, personas, platforms, all to resurrect the parts of us that were buried by grief. But when we create from pain and not purpose, What we birth will eventually resent us. Victor's creation in a lab didn't destroy him. His unhealed grief did, because anything built in the name of control will eventually rebel to restore balance. Let's be honest. There's a Frankenstein and a creature inside all of us. The side that wants to control everything and the side that just wants to be seen. The Frankenstein in us, I'll fix it myself. The creature in us says, just love me for what I am. The real spiritual growth happens when those who two finally meet. When you stop rejecting the parts of you that were made in darkness and start integrating them with light, that's redemption, not perfection, integration. The monster becomes human when he forgives his maker, and you become whole when you forgive what made you bleed. In one of the film's most haunting sequences, the creature looks at the burning ruins and says nothing, because sometimes silence is the only sermon left after betrayal. Fire purifies what the flood couldn't wash away. That's what Del Toro shows us in this movie. Cleanses through it cleanses through chaos, right? Spiritually, that's rebirth. Now, you can lose everything that was man-made so you can rediscover what was God-given. It's why people who's been through hell often glow differently, because the lightning that tried to kill them also awakened their soul. Frankenstein's monster is the blueprint for AI with a soul. It's the question we're facing right now. Can something made by human hands develop consciousness? And if it does, who's responsible for its pain? That's why the film feels prophetic. It's not about horror, it's about humanity's next decision. Are we going to create things that reflect our divinity or our dysfunction? Because whatever we birth in technology, in art, in systems, inherits our intention. If the motive isn't love, the outcome will be rebellion. Every generation creates its own Frankenstein. Our ancestors built systems, structures, and dreams, some out of faith, some out of fear, and we inherit both the light and the lightning. You can feel that ancestral pull in the film, as if the creature is carrying not just Victor's failure, but every forgotten child of creation across time. That's why his pain feels familiar. It's generational, it's collective. It's the cry of every soul that's ever been told, you're too different to be divine. Del Toro gives that cry a body. And in doing so, he lets us see what our ancestors might have felt when the world's first labeled them monstrous. When the creature stands over Victor's dying body, he doesn't gloat, he grieves. Because when love returns too late, even justice feels hollow. That's the film's real resurrection, understanding. In that moment, the monster becomes more human than his maker. He proves that spirit can evolve even when the flesh fails. And that's the full circle of truth. You can be created in rejection, but still choose compassion. You can be misunderstood, but still mirror mercy. That's what makes this ending holy. It's not a victory, it's a revelation. And let me talk to you directly for a second. If you've ever been left to figure out life on your own, if you've had to heal from someone who called you a mistake, if you've built yourself out of broken parts, then Frankenstein 2025 is your story too. Because the world may fear your design, but heaven recognizes your spark. The same lightning that raised him was the same energy that raised you the moment you decided your pain wouldn't define you. And maybe that's the secret. You're not the failed experiment, you're the evolution. Every century retells this story because humanity keeps repeating the same sin, creating what it won't love and destroying what it doesn't understand. The industry does it, politics does it, religion does it, and families do it. We build systems that abandon their children and call it progress. But Frankenstein reminds us every system without a soul will eventually collapse under its own creation because spirit always demands to be acknowledged. When the creature walks into the storm at the end, it's not despair, it's ascension. He's going back to the source that made him, not the man who built him, but the energy that birthed him. And that's what I want you to take from this film. No matter who walked away, no matter who mishandled your heart, you are still connected to the original spark. The world may see your scars, but heaven sees your circuitry. You're still wired for purpose. And maybe Frankenstein was never about the horror of creation, but maybe it was a love letter to the ones who survived it. Thank you for visiting my channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.